Hi, it's Kay. Welcome back. Today I'm creating a rose wreath for my front door. Hi, it's Kay with Modest Me Design. Welcome back to my YouTube channel where we do DIY projects, home decor, and home organization. So to everyone, those who've been here a while and those who are new to my channel, welcome, welcome, welcome. At any time, if you have any questions, just leave it in the comments below. Or if there's something you would like to see me do on this channel, just let me know. And if it's something that I can do, I will try my best to get it done. All right, today we're here to make a rose wreath for the front door. The rose is not a spring flower, but I made it in pink to kind of go with spring. And the reason I chose the rose is because I looked at some of the videos on YouTube for how to make mesh flower wreaths. It looked to be the easiest one. So that's the one I chose to start with. I may try some other flowers at another point. So let's jump right in and I'll share how I made this wreath. So for this wreath, I dug into my craft supplies that are in my basement and found 4 rolls of this pink mesh. And so I decided this would be a good opportunity to use that. And so the mesh is 10 inches wide and I'm cut, I believe it was 32 pieces of 9 inches. And that is what I used to make the base of the flower. And then for around the edges, which you'll see later, I cut 10-inch pieces, and I believe there were 8 of those. And so because this mesh is so thin and the board I'm using is the color gray, I wanted to make sure the color was really deep and intense for this rose. So I actually doubled my layers of mesh. And I began making the petals, and you can see I just brought one corner over to the other corner and then squished it or scrunched it together about 2 inches from the tip, and then put a clothespin on it to hold it in place. And that is what I did to make all of my petals until I was, once they were all ready, and then I began making the rose. So I said I cut 32 of these, but I actually cut 64 because they were doubled. So that gave me 32 petals. Now this is the board I'm using to make my wreath, and I purchased it at Amazon.com, and I'll leave a link in the description box below so that you can get it if you like. And I use zip ties. You can see on every 2 holes, use a zip tie to hold a petal in place. So it made it really easy to work with, and I actually used less mesh on this wreath than I have used in the past. So here's my first little petal, and I'm going to show you how we take the tip of the petal where we had the paper clip, where we had the clothespin. And we're going to stick it underneath the zip tie on the center ring. We're going to start in the center. Then we're going to pull the zip tie tight so that it's held locked in place. Now there are 4 zip ties in that center ring, so I go ahead and insert the second petal and lock it in place. And the person I learned this from did all 4 petals, but I decided it got a little crowded, and since I was new at this, I stopped at the first 2 and did the next step before adding the other 2 petals for that ring. And so the next step is to take the petal and grab one of the pointed ends and to begin rolling it and wrapping the mesh around itself in the center until it starts to form that little inner petal, the inner piece of the rose. Now as you're doing this, you can use hot glue to kind of hold it in place. And the lady I watched do this, of course, she was experienced, so she actually wrapped all 4 petals in that center. And then she used a rubber band to hold them in place, and she recommended a rubber band or a piece of string. But I'm going to do one at a time and use some hot glue. because this is all new to me and I'm trying to get it as, correct as possible. And so the next step is to take the corner of the second petal and begin wrapping it around the first petal. And so here we have the first two petals in place, and now I'm going to finish that inner circle and add two more petals and repeat the same steps by hot gluing one corner and then wrapping it around and hot gluing the end, and then for the fourth petal doing the same. So here I have the first four petals of that inner circle completed, and I'm going to trim off the tails of the mesh that are locked up underneath of the zip ties, and then I'm going to clip the ends off of the four zip ties of that inner circle. So the next step is to repeat this process for the next inner circle. So I find a zip tie, I insert a petal, I tighten it, I kind of wrap this petal around the inner core of the rose, and then move on to the next petal, inserting one in the zip tie, tightening it, and just repeating this process over and over again until I've completed that circle. And then I go back and trim off all of the tails of the petals and trim off the ends of the zip ties, and then that circle is complete. With the two inner rings complete, I now start the third circle or ring, and again it's the same process, and once that's complete I will do that fourth and final outer ring where I have zip ties, and it's the same process again, and I just keep going round and round, zip tie by zip tie in order until they are all filled with petals. Here I am beginning that final inner ring of the petals, and it again is the same process, securing that tail underneath the zip tie and then tucking in the corners on both sides. So here we are at the final ring, and I have 8 petals that were cut at 10-inch lengths, and each petal had a zip tie around them. And then I put a zip tie through the base, that outer circle of the base, and then through the zip tie that's on the petal. And I'm going to pull it tight. And then this last floor ring of petals is going to be secured at the bottom, but then the points on each of the sides, instead of just being wrapped around, they're going to actually be secured under its neighbor's zip tie. So if this were, say, position 1 on that outer ring, the tips of this petal are going to end up going into zip tie number 2, which is to the right of it, and zip tie number 8, which would be to the left of it. Sad to say, I don't have footage of completing this very last row. I think I forgot to hit the record button. But for a more detailed tutorial on how to make this rose, you can check out Lori's channel at Unique in the Creek. She does all kind of beautiful mesh wreaths, and I believe this rose is her design. I do know that the frame I made it on is definitely her design, and I will put a link to her channel and a link to the Amazon site where I purchased the frame or the base that I built the rose on. So I thank you again for spending this time with me, and I'll talk to you again real soon.